Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. I'm Sean Askham, a selectman here in Simsbury, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my fellow selectman, Cheryl Cook. Cheryl, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. And we're very excited. We have a special guest today, Philip Purciello, who, as many of you know at this point, is a candidate for first selectman in town, and will soon be appointed to the Board of Selectmen to fill Nancy Haasse's vacancy. So, Philip, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
It's excellent to have you, and I look forward to working with you on the board.
As do I.
We're missing Selectman Payne today. He's hung up on a little bit of business travel, but I know he'd like to be here with us. But
Yep.
and obviously we don't have Selectman Haasse anymore. We do miss her very much, and we appreciate her service. We were all sad to see her go.
We were.
But she made some significant contributions to this town, and again, I'm sure she won't go too far in advising us and making sure that things are on the straight and narrow. She's still part of the Economic Development Task Force and the Main Street Partnership and other things in town.
Well, she has a long history of volunteer service here in Simsbury, and I think the town is the better for it. So
Agreed.
We very much appreciate her service.
Absolutely, and we'll get to some other items where her her fingerprints are all over, and I think they've done as well. So, with that, Philip, again, welcome. What are you most excited about as you join the board here?
It's great to be involved. I'm looking forward to making a positive impact on the town and having a real say in the occurrences and what's going on in the town. And I viewed it from kind of a land use conservation. So I've served on the board, the Conservation Commission, Inland Wetlands, for about the past year, and really seeing how the things that we were doing are escalating up to the Board of Selectmen. And now having a chance to really impact that and see the final product, if you will, I'm excited about it. I'm thrilled to be a part.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to your experience. Obviously, you've been in town for a number of years now, and Cheryl and I have gotten to know you over those years. Talk a little bit more about your background and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I'm sure people love to get to know you a little bit before you get on the board.
I enlisted in the United States Navy at the age of 18, and I was an intelligence specialist in the Navy. Traveled the world, saw many different communities, did some community service, and regardless if it was my home station or being abroad. I've always had a passion for being involved in the community and doing what I can to make it a better place. When I separated from the military, honorable discharge in 2012, I decided to pursue my Master's of Public Administration, and my intelligence background gave me kind of a thirst for knowledge, and academia tends to feed that thirst a bit, but I also wanted to know more about the town, and I sought out Simsbury. I did my research beforehand, and great place, and on paper, it tells some of the story, but when my fiance and I were looking, and we found a apartment to rent, or a townhouse to rent in Simsbury, just driving on to Hot Meadow for that first time and seeing all the small businesses and the beautiful scenery, and it was a lasting impression, and I knew that I had to be a Simsbury resident at that point. And that thirst for knowledge propelled me into getting involved in town, and I didn't know a thing about conservation, and I picked it up very quick, and there's a lot of components to it, and I was very interested to learn. I'm interested to continue learning on the Board of Selectmen.
And your academic experience, both as a public administration degree and in your communications degree, gives you a lot of solid foundation for what we need in the First Selectman's office.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing some of that academic, that analysis, that scholarly background, and being able to read and interpret statistics, which isn't the most glamorous thing, but I find
wait till you see the budget.
Well,
it's my favorite part, but as we all know,
John gets very excited.
I love budget season.
One of my projects in my master's program, I had the opportunity to look over the CAFR and compare it to other like districts, and I was like, this is before I had lived in Simsbury. It's like, Simsbury is incredible.
It is.
AAA bond rating, doing great
very proud of
financially,
that.
and I mean, left a lasting impression. I'm here today.
Absolutely. No, it's
That's
great.
great.
We don't often hear one of your comments, intelligence and public administration in the same sentence. So look forward to you bringing that experience. And it's good to have a fresh perspective on the board.
Right.
We've got many different skill sets on there, and I think you'll do a nice job complementing the folks that we've already got on there.
Absolutely.
On both sides of the aisle, because at the end of the day, we all work together and solve issues of the town. You've been part of the senior center already from the conservation side. I know that's been before your board, and obviously that's a big issue that Cheryl and I have been pushing through and pushing hard for to make a good decision on and to fund responsibly.
Right.
To find a site. I know the Conservation Commission has been looking at the Performing Arts Center site and digging through that, because there are conservation challenges down there, and we've got to overcome those to make sure that we're being responsible with the land and not just building for the sake of building. So it's good that folks like yourself and others have been on there to kind of steer that process. So.
Yeah. And I think it's important to do that and find the proper home for the senior community center, and do so with preserving our visual and environmental resources and keeping that in mind. And
Sean and I felt very strongly when we started advancing this project that putting the senior center in the center of town, in the center of an area where there's already a lot of activity happening. It sort of brings the whole town together, and it makes for a good use of space for a variety of age groups. While we're all very focused on the seniors and their programming needs and the parking issues and all the things that go along with that, we are also very conscious of the fact that this is a senior community center, and we want this to be a space that's valuable to all Simsbury residents. And
it doesn't. You make a great point. It does need to transcend generations, because that's typically what we support in this town. The library is a great example. It wasn't just built for school kids, and it wasn't just built for seniors. It was built for everybody, and including those folks in between. And it's constantly one of the best libraries in the state from a circulation standpoint, from a programming standpoint, and it's because a lot of smart people, both inside the government and outside, and the library board and all different groups came together and really had an intelligence look at it. And I think that's what we're trying to do with the senior center. We commissioned a survey that the Board of Finance actually suggested that we thought was a good idea on the Board of Selectmen, and we got some good feedback. We got some challenging feedback in a couple of places, but one of them was it validated that folks want it downtown, and that was something we all heard and believed and felt in the community. Secondly, there was a fair amount of support generally for the PAC site, but folks still, I think, were open to some other ideas as we move down. And there was a fair amount of tolerance for the funding of it. There was a broad spectrum in terms of what folks are willing to pay, but it's a hard question when you haven't seen the product yet, when you haven't seen the design to answer how much you're willing to pay for something. But the most interesting thing I think that came out of it, and I think you and I agree, is the overwhelming support for getting the programming right and really focusing on the content. And again, that's my point of how we did it with the library.
Well, and our programming consultant that we've hired is one of the best in the nation on senior programming. And, we're getting a lot of good ideas. We're getting a lot of good feedback from the town staff who work with the seniors, who are currently involved in the senior center, and all of their programming, from social services through what we would call traditional senior center programming.
Absolutely. It's funny. Sometimes we get, why do you folks hire consultants? Why do you have, studies and all this stuff? Well, part of it is to understand the consensus of the community, because the vocal majority the vocal minority can often influence a decision that may not be representative of the community. So, one of our challenges is to make sure we're hearing the entire community, including those folks that haven't yet raised their hand, called Medicine Fitzgeralds or otherwise. So, that's why we have consultants. That's why we have public hearings. That's why we put things out in the paper. And this consultant in particular, I think, is a really good idea, as you articulated, to make sure that when we sign our names and when we say aye, and we're going to spend a certain number of millions of dollars of your money, the taxpayers' money, we're going to get it right.
Absolutely.
And if we don't get it right, we're not going to do it. So
Well, and one of the things, we've all learned on the Board of Selectmen is we can't be an expert in everything.
Absolutely.
But what our job is to take in all of the information, that's available to us, and when we don't have it, to go find it.
Right. Absolutely.
And to make the best informed decisions that we possibly can. So I think that's absolutely where we're headed with the Senior Center project. But we have a lot of other exciting things on the table
We
for
do.
the Board of Selectmen now. We've got
certainly do.
many different initiatives, and
We've always got initiatives, my friend. One of the big things that, again, piggybacking off the survey, was we heard a lot of feedback in there about folks concerned about the economic development culture in town, and there's a couple of big events that kind of surround that. We got some what we think is good news recently on the Hartford.
Right.
It sounds like they've got a purchaser that at least fundamentally seems like they're interested in bringing the type of development that when we did the mini charrette down there and we started to plan for land use down there, they seem to be appreciative of that process.
Right.
I've spoken to several people that met with them, and they indicated that was a large part of their buying decision, was that this town has done such a great job of planning and organizing so that they understood the land use landscape, and it could potentially save them time in the process. But
well, a big part of that has been the form-based code.
Correct.
Which, you and I have passed,
Absolutely.
in the last year, and with the help of our town planner and a lot of really knowledgeable people.
absolutely.
And by putting the form-based code in place, we made the Hartford a more attractive property.
We really did, and I'll get to a point of who should get credit for that in a second. But the other thing is, and I want to make sure that folks understand out there, that just because there's somebody that's buying it, and just because there's a good idea, doesn't mean it's going to get railroaded through the land use process. Right. It will be open, it will be consultative, there will be plenty of input, and it will be a product that I think will fit in the character of this town. Or that the zoning commission is not going to support it. I would venture. Those are responsible folks, and they understand what's at stake. It's a big piece of property. I know it makes people uncomfortable. What if? The building might still come down, and I know that's going to concern people, but the building might have to come down to move forward. We haven't yet seen their plan. Right. So the thing that I would ask is that I'm going to try to keep an open mind and hear what they have to say, and trust the process to bring a product that we want here in Simsbury. And the other piece, back to the who should get credit, Hiram Peck, who unfortunately we're losing as our town planner. He's moving to Avon. Really deserves a lion's share. He's a humble guy, and he'll never say he had anything to do with it. But working with town staff, working with different boards and commissions, working with the Hartford, working with the Hartford's broker, all of them, from what I understand, sang his praises in terms of facilitating this process and leading us through to make sure that we got a good result there. And we back when I proposed the Hartford land use group to come together, and it was going to be zoning and Board of Selectmen and planning and different folks. This is exactly what we envisioned, was a consultative, collaborative process where we'd have a good buyer at the end that understood our community, and so far I think that's what we're getting.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's important that all the public know that we are in the beginning of this process.
Yep.
This is not something that in a month or two you're going to hear this store that whatever. That's not going to happen.
There will not be a shovel in the ground in August.
There's not going to be a shovel in the ground, and this is going to be a long process, and it's a big part of our town, and it deserves a lot of attention. So.
Right. And on the same vein as economic development, we recently passed the business incentive policy, which the Economic Development Task Force at Nancy Hassi's leadership, I think is an excellent policy. We were able to pass that on the Board of Selectmen, and that was a process that we started, well, honestly, that Nancy started 2 years ago when she ran. And, proposed her Economic Development Task Force, and we agreed to fund it. And we weren't quite sure what we were going to get, but Nancy had a vision, and she put together a lot of smart folks, and the Board of Selectmen trusted her to do that. And that those folks, about, what was it, last November, I think we sent the business incentive policy to them. Said bring it back to us, get lots of input, get lots of feedback, and give us a final product that we can get our arms around and pass. And I think that's what we got.
I think we did. And we did have one before. It wasn't
really
being utilized a lot. And they made a lot of improvements, and it's it's much better. And I think one of the themes that you've been focusing on is economic development and bringing businesses to town, and businesses that fit in with the character of the town. And this is one of those policies that is going to move us forward.
Right,
That-
and holding true to our heritage and what
Exactly.
we believe in Simsbury, and providing us that leverage to make an impact economically throughout the community.
Right. And to make Simsbury attractive.
Absolutely.
To not only bringing in new businesses, but
Right.
one of the things I like about this policy is that it's available to our existing businesses.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to expand,
Right.
you know, they can come to us and say, look,
Right.
I need help, you know, I need this, you know, and we can work with them.
And I think the versatility of it, so appealing to your technological industry and bringing in, you know, this the movement of tech businesses and the innovation that they bring, all the way down to your mom and pops, and,
Right.
and you know, it's going to have a broad spectrum impact on the community.
I think it will, and that was, you know, that was one of the things I was most pleased to see, is it was extremely favorable towards our existing businesses, while
Right.
still, you know, being able to reach out. And there's a lot of confusion, and as we talked about with the Hartford and other things, and you know, new and different makes people uncomfortable, and we see that all the time on the Board of Selectmen. And you know, it's part of how things go. But you know, the good news is, and one of the things that gave me a lot of comfort is there's a number of checks and balances in this policy.
Absolutely.
It is not a freewheeling give money away at a whim.
Right.
You know, we recognize that every tax dollar is precious, and there has to be a substantial investment, and it doesn't need a monetarily investment, but a substantial investment that's going to better the community, better the business environment, so that it ultimately is a win for the taxpayers, even if we have to wait a little bit longer to fully realize that benefit.
Right.
You know, we're not talking about Pfizer situations or,
Yeah.
you know, other things in, you know, in other towns where I know, you know, that concerns and that gets thrown around. We're talking about, you know, things like the redevelopment of the Apollo property, you know, years ago. That was under the old business incentive policy. This new policy encourages even further projects such as those. You know, there's you know, there's a lot of different components to it. So I would ask that, you know, folks take a look at it, ask us questions, reach out
Right.
to us before, you know, they dismiss or are concerned about it, because often, as we know, it's about the investigative process, and you kind of go through that and you're like, wow, this is a really
Right.
good product.
Right.
Well, and one of the things, in addition to that appeals to me, is that a lot of our small business owners, and we have a lot of them, are Simsbury residents.
Absolutely.
They are paying those taxes.
Right.
And every taxpayer deserves to have their voice heard. And
Correct.
whether you're a business or a homeowner or
Absolutely.
whatever, you know, your stake is, you have a stake. And, you know, as I always say here, and I've probably said it too many times, I encourage people to come out and say their piece. You know, if they have something to say, come see us. You know, we have public
Absolutely.
audience, send us a letter, call us up. You know, we are all available all the time.
Yep.
And we would encourage that.
Absolutely, I would relish that, because we make big decisions at almost every Board of Selectmen meeting, and I'm often surprised at how little public input it is, and you know, I take that often as a validation of we're doing a good job, we're making good decisions. But it would be great to have folks come out and provide their input on things like tax policies and, you know, land use, and you know, folks often wait for a contentious issue, and then, you know, by then, you know, it's harder to manage the
Right.
process. It's harder to make a difference. If you get in on the front end when we're passing the policy or when we're thinking about a concept, that's when you can really influence what happens in this town. And another place that we're going to start influencing the town is, as we've talked about in prior programs, is the Charter Revision Commission.
Absolutely.
So at our last Board of Selectmen meeting, we actually appointed most of the members, 8 members from the two political parties, and we've got some independents or unaffiliated voters, excuse me, to appoint still. But Cheryl and I have been working hard with our counterpart, Chris Kelly, on the Personnel Subcommittee meeting, or subcommittee, to craft you know, that charge. We've been working on that for a number
That's
of
right.
months together, and I'm really pleased with it. I think it's 11 or 12 items that
I
we've
am
got.
too. It's very specific, but it's extensive. And I think the committee has its work cut out for it. but
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of smart people on there, and I think they will have a robust debate about
They will, and it's a broad range of topics. You know,
Right.
topics. One of them, obviously, is town manager. You know, and there's a lot of reasons to discuss that. But the other is the concept of not just town manager, but the form of government.
Absolutely.
What is Simsbury going to look like for the next 100 years? You know, what is the Board of Selectmen going to look like? What are the terms of office? How's the Board of Finance going to work if there is a town manager? If there's not, okay, you know, do you make changes there? There's some simple items like budget calendars and cleaning
Right.
up legal words and, you know, positions in the charter from a town staff standpoint. And, you know, there's a lot of opportunity here. We gave them an aggressive time frame.
We did.
They need to be back to us by March. which is a short window, but it's definitely doable. And with the folks that Chris and I interviewed recently, it will get done.
Right.
And the thought process there is we've got a presidential election in November of 2016. And I know that my fellow Board of Selectmen members and myself believe that when 80 to 90% of this community is going to come out and vote yea or nay,
Exactly.
that's the time to change the government
Absolutely.
or not change the government. And you
Right.
know, it's really important that we hit that milestone so that
It
we
is.
get the most input and the, you know, the most opportunity for folks to have a say, not only during the charter process, but again during when they ultimately approve or deny the changes that we're offering. So.
Certainly going to be the biggest audience at the
It
voting
certainly will.
booth, so.
It's you know, the voters in this town make good decisions. We've
That's
seen
right.
that time and again. You know, on charter items, on candidates, on various issues, on spending, on budgets. So
But again, we encourage people, follow along. There's
Yes.
going to be
Yes.
public hearings. All of this is going to be out in the open. There
will be dozens of them, yes.
There will be many opportunities
Right.
to make your voice heard and, you know, use it.
And really, there's no better place to impact your life than right here at home, at your local level of government.
That's right.
yeah, we often hear, you know, I'm frustrated with how the government runs. Well, guess what? You get to rewrite the
have a say.
Constitution of the
That's right.
Simsbury.
Exactly.
This is,
You can come and tell us.
it doesn't get much better than this, quite
Absolutely.
honestly. And you know, the Board of Selectmen, after we charge the commission, we are out of the process until it comes back, which I think is nice. It's a
Right.
pure process. You know, they're not accountable to anyone but the deadlines and to the community. They owe us a response, but they don't have to. They can say nothing more than "Thank you, we looked at this and we're not interested."
And we're not going to do it.
Or they can make a change. So it's really I think a really great
It's a great
process.
process, yeah,
And I
absolutely.
look forward to seeing it go through. Now we got some good news recently.
Oh, great
Some
news.
outstanding news.
I am so excited about this, and as you know, I don't know if you know, I serve as a commissioner for the Simsbury Housing Authority in addition to being on the Board of Selectmen, and I've done that since 2011, I think it was now. But the Housing Authority encompasses Virginia Connolly residents and the Owen Murphy apartments. You know, 140 souls live up there and are our responsibility. The Housing Authority does not take money from the town. It's not part of the budget, but you know, it is town property, and those are our residents. And we have a great need for road repairs, roof repairs, all sorts of things, and we rely mostly on state funding for that.
Right.
And due to the diligence of our executive director, Ed LaMontagne, and with the assistance of town staff, Tom Cook and Larry Wagner as a consultant, they have been selected to receive a small cities grant in the amount of $775,000.
Right.
Which is going to go a long way
Absolutely.
to make much needed repairs. And I'm particularly thrilled about this because last year we were turned down. I mean, we went through this process, and for one reason or another, we were not selected, and it was very disappointing. But you know, as I said, we have a very persistent staff,
Pays off.
and people who really care about the people who live there. You know, that housing authority functions basically with 5 full-time employees, and that's a lot of work for
is,
5 people to take care of those people. And as commissioners, you know, we're not commissioners that just come in, sit there and say yes all the time. You know, we are all actively involved in you know, the management there. There's tenant meetings, and we have activity, you know, schedules and things like that, and we all make a point to go, and you know, we go to lunches and parties, and you know, just to celebrate important events with the residents.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's going to be a great thing for them. It's going to make it a
Absolutely.
safer environment.
great.
It's going to make those buildings last longer, and that's
It's
that's
a
important.
significant investment, and it's one that we've needed to make in some capacity for a while now. So it's great. Now we all understand the grants from the state are still our tax dollars, but
They are.
we're sharing it with the rest of the residents of Connecticut versus just the residents of Simsbury. So it
Right.
does help us there,
Well,
and it's important to get
20
our,
towns were chosen for, and you know,
that's
we're very appreciative of the funds. So
absolutely. So that's outstanding.
so
Well,
we're thrilled for Ed and the rest of the people who worked on it.
That's fantastic. It's been a good summer of mostly good news in town. We've got
It
we've got
has.
that opportunity. We've had the Performing Arts Center has had an outstanding season. Knock on wood, we've got a couple
Absolutely.
more to go.
Right.
From a weather standpoint, you know, I think we were all able to take in the 4th of July concert there that
Right.
had over
Absolutely.
10,000 folks in town. I know there was a little bit of
Yeah.
traffic issues, but
Yep.
you know what? The Simsbury Police Department getting 10,000 people
Excellent.
out of town. they do a hell of a job.
They
They did a
you
great
know,
job.
it was
and,
People were
incredible.
safe, and
you know, I was there. Everybody was having a good time.
Yeah.
Everybody enjoyed the evening and
Right.
Yeah.
celebrating, you know, our nation's independence. And it doesn't get better than that. I was
And
thrilled to
that's
be part
a
of
theme
it.
that, you know, extends throughout all the events they have over there.
Right.
Is, you know, just a great job overall by the people administrating the events as
Yeah.
well as our town's law enforcement.
Exactly.
Great job.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's another example where, you know, the town partners with you know, a really great group of volunteers, and I'm never surprised but always in awe of the volunteers that come out, both on boards and commissions, on nonprofits, you know, on Main Street Chamber, all these folks. You know, I just had the opportunity to interview 6 unbelievably qualified folks for the unaffiliated spot for the charter
Right.
revision, and it's just. It's amazing the caliber of individuals that we have in this town, and people that are willing to raise their hand. So we're very
I'm always
lucky.
surprised when I go to the high school and stuff. I go and talk to
yeah.
civics classes, and they say, "Is that your job?" And I said, "No, we're all volunteers." And it always surprises the students, you know, that everybody's a volunteer. You know,
Yep.
they think people go off and do this as their job, and
Nope.
Right.
but that's what makes this town great, and we're thrilled to have you
Yeah, we're
as a
really looking forward to
volunteer
having you
and
join,
being
and
part of
yeah,
it.
I'm-
And
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I've, you know, to echo your statements, I think that volunteerism is exactly what makes this community so great. These people have a passion for what they do. They're not doing it for a check. They're doing it for an internal, you know,
Right.
gratification, and I think that's great.
Absolutely. So, Philip, welcome. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to serving
Welcome.
with you
Thank you
starting
both
on
very
August
much.
10th. And then Cheryl and I will be with you right there along the way, and obviously we'll have Selectman Payne back as well. So,
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
all right. Well, thank you all for joining us for another edition of Community Conversations. We appreciate you tuning in, and thank you to the folks here at SCTV for hosting us yet again. You do great work and another example of wonderful volunteers. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.